I've been speaking to some Ukrainian officials privately and also in closed door conferences and settings, and they would often say that one of the goals that they want to set for this counteroffensive is the neutralization of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. So maybe since the Moskva sinking last year has become an increasingly important part of Ukraine's military doctrine and strategy. And striking Novorossiysk is very striking for the Ukrainians because after the Moscow was sunk, the Russian Black Sea Fleet actually redeployed part of its resources to the Novorossiysk area as something of a safe harbor, and now that safe harbor is being made vulnerable. Another thing to keep in mind is that this could be a reaction to Russia's suspension of the Black Sea grain export deal and threats to strike commercial ships that carry grain. So if Russia's willing to make those kinds of threats, Ukraine wants to show that it's willing to strike back in some way and undermine Russia's naval capabilities.
And how much do you think might change as a result of this? I mean, how damaging might this be, at least psychologically, for Russia's Black Sea Fleet?
Well, I think that this is psychologically a blow to the Russian Black Sea Fleet, and it's another embarrassment that even in safe harbor in Russia, Russian ships are unsafe. Very similar to when they struck the Engels Air Base in Ryazan. It showed that Russian aircraft assets were similarly unsafe and insecure. So it's a way of kind of keeping people off guard. The drone strikes in Moscow also do that. But I think that, in terms of the actual battlefield dynamics, aside from the Black Sea Fleet being able to strike calibers and other precision missiles in Ukrainian cities and kill more Ukrainian civilians, it's not going to do very much for the overall dynamics. The Black Sea Fleet really only becomes important if a city like Odessa was threatened, and Russia is far from getting there, right? They can't do an amphibious landing there when they don't even have control over Donbass.
And meanwhile, President Putin's forces are using drones of their own. I understand British military intelligence today has confirmed that Russian drones have been attacking Ukrainian assets just 200 meters from the Romanian border, saying that Mr. Putin's risk appetite is increasing.
Definitely, yeah. There's been already some brinkmanship near the Romanian border and also near Moldova. Like even during these strikes in the fall, we noticed some shrapnel and debris from Russian missiles firing into Moldovan soil, leading to a diplomatic crisis and a summoning of ambassadors. We've seen the electricity and power cuts cut off the power grids that link Moldova together. And now with the Black Sea grain export deal falling apart and the literal nations of the Black Sea even being more viscerally and vigorously anti-Russian, and the United States strengthening its defense of Romania as part of the defense of the Black Sea, we're seeing the Russians escalate further. And these drone strikes are really a sign that Russia's willing to push the boundaries and retaliate against deterrence mechanisms of the Black Sea as much as possible, because it still sees the Black Sea, from their point of view, as a Soviet lake, and NATO and anyone else who gets involved there as stepping into their sphere of influence.
And one wonders how this is being digested in Russia, in Moscow indeed. We've heard that Alexei Navalny, Mr. Putin's chief critic, has now been given an extra 19 years on top of the 11 years. Originally, he was accused and convicted of fraud, and now he is being accused of leading an extremist organization. What message do you think that's going to send to those people in Russia who are not happy with the way things are going?
Well, obviously sends a very negative signal towards them. And it's very telling that he would use the charge of extremism to sentence Navalny, because before he was hiding the charges, as you just said, under embezzlement and fraud and other things. By using the charge of extremism, he is basically explicitly condemning Navalny for his political activities, for his support for liberal democracy, for his resistance to Russian corruption, for his condemnations of the Ukraine war. And while this will also quiet the liberals, I think it will also maybe give ultranationalists in Russia some pause, like those who supported Yevgeny Prigozhin's mutiny back in late June, because the extremism charge that was leveled against Navalny is also being applied to one of their heroes and spokespeople, Igor Girkin, the MH17 perpetrator. So this could silence people on both the liberal critics of the war as well as the hardliners who want the war to be fought more brutally and think that Putin isn't doing a good job.
And there's this quote from Navalny, who was leading an anti-corruption foundation. He says, for a new, free, rich country to be born, it must have parents, those who want it, who expect it, and are willing to make sacrifices for its birth. One wonders how many people are prepared in today's Russia to make the kind of sacrifice Navalny is prepared to undertake.
Well, that's exactly the thing. I mean, the thing that the Kremlin has done very, very good is creating apathy, right? Creating apathy to Russian war crimes, creating apathy to the corruption that's being there, basically scaring people into submission and creating like kind of a false sense of, security and stability that contrasted with the 1990s economic turmoil and the Chechen wars and all the chaos of that. Putin's legacy hinges on order and passivity, replacing chaos and revolution. And now we're at a crossover point. Will that continue? Or will that apathy also extend to protecting Putin's leadership too? As much as there's not much resistance to Putin or protests on the streets, we also didn't see much of a pro-government mobilization around Putin when Prigozhin launched his mutiny back in late June. In fact, there are motorcades supporting Prigozhin and very few actually coming out in public supporting Putin in that way.
And what of Yevgeny Prigozhin? He was accused of being a traitor. He was embarrassed by having his HQ raided. There was talk of his assets being seized. But now there appears to be a rollback on all of that. What does that tell us about Prigozhin and his relationship with Putin? Some say he's stronger than ever and that he's preparing to launch new operations in Africa, maybe even in Niger.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's just been an unbelievable story what's happened over the course of the past 4 to 5 weeks in Russia, because Prigozhin was being denounced as a traitor by Putin and by almost every single Russian military official, even his allies in the military, like General Surovikin, who disappeared now, and Alexeyev were condemning him. And now he's meeting with foreign diplomats in the Central African Republic at the St. Petersburg summit. His hotel is being used to host one of the biggest international conferences that Russia has hosted since the war in Ukraine began. And his Wagner Group forces are trying to strike a deal to enter Niger. So I think he is got a lot of positions of strength. And it may not be because Prigozhin and Putin have a particularly good relationship anymore, but it might be because Putin is actually fearing that kind of ultranationalist dissent. And I think that by arresting Gherkin and by punishing Navalny in this way, he's going to try to rein those people in, but he hasn't quite done it yet.